You're listening to the Creative Capital Podcast. You're dying to learn about how you can create wealth through real estate investing? Then you come to the right place. Join in every week as we go over the ins and outs of real estate investing and learn how you too can become financially free. What's going on, everybody? This is Josh Ferrari, host of the Creative Capital Podcast. And on today's episode, we have none other, it's a very different episode, just to give you a little sneak peek of it, none other than the Potty Princess, Kelly Stinson, and Anselmo Torres. I hope I didn't just butcher his last name. I think that's how you say it. But they are like a dynamic duo. They are super strong into water conservation. As you've seen from the title, you'll see how we're saving millions of dollars in our investments, mostly multifamily investments, through efficient toilets. And you might be saying, how on earth are you going to save so much money on an efficient toilet? Well, they really work hard and actually made a software for monitoring water conservation and water usage. And they have some really awesome nuggets of wisdom that I had no idea. Like they mentioned right at the beginning that water and sewer prices have actually outpaced inflation over the last 8 years. Why is water and sewer continuing to outpace inflation and nothing else is? So the fact that what they're doing is of extreme value, because if you've got a deal, we mentioned this in the show, if you've got a deal and you're just needing to you're at the best and final scenario, you need just a little bit extra to get over the top there, then if you've got access to their company and you can install this water efficiency and you can decrease your water expense, then you will have a leg up as far as what you could offer for what returns will be had, because you're decreasing expenses, so you're increasing NOI. And if you put that at, say, a 6.5, 7 cap, I mean, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars saved right there. So you could have a little extra bonus there on what you could offer, and then you could get the deal. So it's stuff like that. And the fact that they come in, they put a golden toilet in. We'll talk about the toilets that they put in, the shower heads that they put in, the aerators. To be honest, guys, I didn't even know what an aerator was until this episode. So the aerators that they put in, all of the faucets, and how that plays a key role in actually saving you money so that you can increase your overall NOI, which at the end of the day increases your value. So now you've got an investment worth just that much more. We go over what cost ratio is for the benefit. We go over how the idea even came to be a reality, like when they just decided this was going to be something they were going to do. We talk about how Kelly got her nickname the Potty Princess. You guys are going to listen to that. It's really funny. This show was just all around really awesome. Kelly and Anselmo are just two awesome people, and they're running a great company. The whole idea of water conservation is amazing, because not only is it benefiting the investor and the end user, but it's also benefiting everyone else on the globe that's not directly affected by what's happening in that one particular asset, because you're conserving the water usage. So two really great people, and I just can't wait for you to meet them and to hear this episode. So we're just going to jump right into it. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's so good to have you two out on the show with us today.
Thank you. We are so excited to be here. We're going to have some fun conversations today.
Yeah, talk about toilets and lots of other ways to save money.
It's a completely different spin around to what we normally talk about, but wealth creation and saving money is something we do like to talk about. So that's exactly kind of what we're going to be discussing within the topic of toilets and water conservation. So today we've got Kelly Stinson and Anselmo Torres with us. And guys, for those out there that don't really know who you are and what the heck toilets has to do with real estate, take turns real quick and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'll do a little drum roll here first and say I'm going to introduce your listeners to the Potty Princess. Take it away, Kelly. You do have a name, so
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yes. So you may not remember our organization's name, which is SAS. You may not remember my name is Kelly Stinson, but I garnered the nickname the Potty Princess a couple of years ago, and just happened organically at a networking event. Somebody introduced me that way, and it just kind of stuck in this world. So I embraced that. But my platform and my passion is around water conservation and being able to preserve our world's most precious resource for our future generations. But in turn, also, I'm looking for ways that we're able to increase cash flow, right? So something that I figured out probably about 12 years ago is that through water and energy conservation, there's a massive correlation to that and the net operating income on properties. So that is really what parlayed into this relationship with SAS. And through that journey, it was about 3 years ago, I met Anselmo out on a property. And then we've been a little bit of partners in crime since then.
Yes. I got involved in really multifamily about 6 years ago, created a water monitoring program that would help property owners, investors reduce or just monitor their water consumption, right? How can we monitor it so I'm not shocked by that bill that comes when it's really, really high? It's really tough to create wealth if that wealth is going down the toilet on your property every single day. So that's what I'm here for.
That's so interesting. First of all, how you got your nickname, the Potty Princess. Someone just randomly introduced you that way, and you're like,
Yes.
I like that.
When I first met her, it wasn't like, oh, yeah, she didn't embrace it.
No, it was still kind of a joke.
Yeah.
But people just kind of talked about it. And then finally, I think it was early last year, right before we went into shelter in place, we decided that everywhere we went, somebody remembered that. And so we decided to try to centralize a lot of our education and platform, especially with everybody running virtual. It was an easy way to find out where Anselmo and I were going to be at and find a lot of our resources.
That's so neat. And the fact that you guys were able to niche into that, as far as like, it sounded like where this originated from was the desire to just conserve water more so than anything that had to do with real estate, anything that had to do with saving money. It was like, no, we're just going to do something good for the world. Yeah. And then it ended up bleeding right over into, or flowing, I should say, right over into real estate, to where now you're able to save property owners and yourself, because I'm sure you guys do your own investments. And now everyone can just save extra money from a little bit of conservation and a little bit of technology it sounded like you created. Talk us through about, what is this technology? How does it work?
It's a very basic software, right, that just allowed a property to monitor their water consumption. And really, what it was a website that you would go to, log in. The property maintenance staff would enter in that meter reading every morning. If it was high, it would indicate that it was high. And then now you know, hey, something else is going on my property. I can be proactive instead of reactive, find out where that leak is coming from, find out what's causing that high consumption. So that's how it started. And as an organization, SAS has evolved, and we've partnered up with another organization that allows us to actually monitor that consumption in real time. It's a plug and play device that we can apply to a water meter that starts to track the water consumption behaviors of your property. It's awesome because a lot of people really don't understand. They just see the bill, right? But once you start showing them the data of what's happening on their multifamily property, especially if it's high, that light bulb goes off like, oh, wow, I didn't know this is what was happening on my property.
Yeah.
And so that's something that you guys would install?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So we were having SAS because we're a full turnkey service provider where, we would come in and assess the property and remove all the inefficient fixtures like the toilets, the shower heads, and the aerators, and then we would replace them. And then we would have a lot of owners that would be like, okay, what do I do? How do I protect my asset moving forward? And how do I proactively get notified of those abnormal consumption patterns? So as we started going out there and looking, there's a lot of avenues out there, but in multifamily, if your hold period is only like 3 to 5 years or maybe 5 to 7 years, it doesn't make sense to invest in submetering or invest in $20, $30, $40,000 system, because the payback is probably not going to be there. So that's what's been really nice, is that LeakAware has been an amazing complement to help us along the way. That's a cost-effective solution. And then because of how the technology has evolved over the years, now we've been able to pull together these sensors that are very cost effective. It's a non-invasive installation. I call it like a bracelet for the meter or a hug for the meter, because it seriously just has a rubber strap that just attaches onto the top of the meter head. And then it will talk to a relay, and it's through a cellular signal. Right. So it's not off of Wi-Fi, because a lot of times you get into areas where the Wi-Fi signal is not strong or it's not open access. So this is all through a cellular signal in real time, and you're able to get ahead of any of the water loss that is occurring, because water is expensive and it's continuing to increase. Right. I mean, isn't it that for the last 7 years?
Yes, for the last 7, 8 years, it's outpaced inflation. The water and sewer rates that have been increasing have outpaced inflation for the last 7 to 8 years in the 50 major metropolitan areas. So you can pretty much assure that, much like taxes, your water and sewer rates are going to continue to increase.
Why on earth would that be? I mean, why do you guys think that is?
I love this topic. So if you think about it, a lot of our infrastructure is aging, right? A lot of the infrastructure has been around for 30, 40, 50 plus years. Our population has increased. We're just putting so much pressure on that aging infrastructure and expecting it to perform at the highest level. Well, it's going to bust. And then to replace that infrastructure costs a lot of money. Well, usually we're going to pay for it. So they do that through the increasing rates. And really, that's the only way it's going to happen.
You're talking about like the actual concrete. I'm not familiar with really how they're building. I'm just thinking like the concrete blocks under the ground that the water actually flows through, and the systems that pump it, the mechanics, hydraulics, all that stuff. You're saying we're now expecting those to work overtime, and they're obviously not. And so they're eventually going to break. And so in order to replace it, they're charging us as just individuals, real estate owners, a premium. And it's scaling faster than inflation. That's so crazy.
And also, many of us think about just the water utility, and we don't take into consideration that we also need to be evaluating the sewer, because while you're consuming the water, all of that water needs to go down somewhere. So it's really those increases is really about that sewer infrastructure and being able to manage that demand, because while the supply is dwindling, the demand is increasing. So we see this on a consistent basis.
And it's much more expensive for the sewer infrastructure because sewage can only go one way, and that's down. So it's much more expensive. Water you can push, use pressure, and get it from point A to point B much easier. So there's certain markets, especially like in certain areas of Atlanta and certain areas of Alabama, where the sewer rate is almost 3 to 4 times higher than what that water rate is, right? So it's very important to look at that and see what rates are high, why they're high, and especially understand how consumption will impact that expense.
So have you guys figured out a way to save people money on the sewer side of it?
Well, absolutely.
It's always based on consumption, right? So if you can decrease the amount of water that's coming in, then you're going to impact that sewer expense.
Right. Inadvertently, you would impact that. So guys, when did this idea become a reality? I mean, one day you had this idea, you liked the idea of water conservation, and Anselmo, you were like, okay, I'm going to create something that can track it so we can figure this out. And then Kelly, somewhere along the line, you met him, and then you guys just kind of combined it all together into what you guys are now. So at what point was it like, this would be cool to, okay, now we're saving people millions.
Yeah.
And this is like a full-time gig.
So it's really kind of funny because SAS has been around for over 20 years. And a lot of people don't know that because our brand really did not become visible till a couple of years ago, and definitely is excelled in the last 2 years. But SAS was started by an individual who actually opened up his business to serve multifamily property owners with like sub-metering services, where he would go in and, place sub-metering on, Class C properties. And what occurred, though, in the real estate market and multifamily is that green loans became very popular. And the green loans are, for those that are not familiar with that, at the time, both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were offering green loans. And the advantage of a green loan is that you as an owner receive a reduced interest rate up to 10 basis points in exchange for reducing your water and energy consumption by 30% on the property. So through that, the lenders are requiring these upgrades to occur on the property, and they're escrowed in. So you get a higher loan to value ratio. So everything's escrowed. Lower interest rate makes sense when you're looking at $10, $15, $30 million property. Every basis point counts. And these owners, because the relationship was already in place around the sub-metering, these owners were coming back asking, hey, the lender's asking us to change out toilets. They said that this is going to reduce the consumption. There wasn't any discussion that it was going to impact NOI on the property or boost the asset value. It was just around consumption. So the owner at the time, he pivoted a little bit and did some research, found the right partner, the right way to install these, and was really just your green loan go-to for anything on the water consumption side. And then the green loans dropped off. But during that journey, Herb, he was ready to move on to his next chapter in life of retirement and just traveling nonstop. And so he sold his organization to some private equity. And at that point, it was like, okay, well, what do we do with this? And that's really where Anselmo and I partnered in. And we found that everybody was looking at water consumption because it was a lender requirement through the green loans. But we were looking at it with, well, wait a second, you're reducing consumption. And if you're being charged a certain rate per 1,000 gallons, there has to be a financial correlation on that. So I'm kind of a numbers nerd. So not only am I running on the water and energy side of my personal platform, but I like to back into financials on things. And I don't know why, but I like to study 10K reports. That's just strange, right? Friday night, glass of wine, we're digging into a 10K. So with that, we started looking at the numbers and we're like, dang, if we're reducing, the water and sewer bill by $50,000 in year one on this 200 unit property, what does that do to the asset value? So then we start running some of the calculations. So you run it at like a 6.5 cap. And so that ends up being like a $769,000 asset value boost. So then I started asking owners like, hey, did you know that there is a correlation between inefficient fixtures and reducing the consumption on the property? And we're not talking about a $500 reduction. We're talking about like a $50,000 reduction. Or even if you're on maybe like an 80 unit property or a 100 unit property, that could easily be a $20,000 reduction. And that's huge, especially right now for those that are taking like a bridge loan to do their CapEx, because you can't run rent increases necessarily right now. So, you need a little bit more time to scale the rent increases. So you take the bridge loan, run the CapEx through there, and then you refinance the property in 2 or 3 years. Well, through taking out those old toilets, putting the new ones in, reduce the expense, you refi the property, dang, you got some happy investors. And it just really started to snowball. And I think it's about on a weekly basis now, that we are running post-install analysis on our projects and that we're able to share out. And we're going to be sharing that more consistently because that's part of our way of giving back in the community. This is happening. This is not an anomaly. It is happening day in, day out.
Yeah. So how much would something like the upfront cost to get new toilets installed and to get the software put in so you can do this analysis? What's the cost versus benefit ratio, I guess?
It's a great question, right? So in market, our sweet spot, right? The properties that work well with us are, let's say, B and C class properties that were built before 1995. If they've had no plumbing upgrades, they haven't replaced the toilet, shower heads, or aerators since the property was built, that's our sweet spot. You're going to see ROIs within that 8 to 12 months on projects on the install. You're going to see anywhere from 30 to 60% reduction in your water and sewer bill. So if your properties are within those parameters, you're our sweet spot, and we can really help you out.
Well, I might just be needing some help then, guys, because I've got a property that sounds like it exactly fits that bill.
Yeah, we're trying to make toilets sexy again, right?
Wait, when were toilets sexy before?
Well, back in the day when you can order them in like the powder blue or like the
pink and green,
or the harvest gold, you had to put them on, and now they're all just boring white, bone color. So now we're trying to make them sexy again. We want to, this is a hot thing. I mean, cash flow is great. So yeah, cash flow and commodes.
You guys, I love that tagline. If you guys could literally install like gold toilets in my property, it would be so exquisite. I think everyone would get a nice kick out of that.
The right price will be there.
For the right
price, we'll do it.
For any right price. So walk me, I think you kind of did a little bit, but walk me through an exact scenario of how this would play out if I decided I wanted to use you guys' system. For me being interested in reaching out to you guys, like what does the process look like? And walk me through that.
That's a great question. So you don't actually have to engage with SAS once you have the property under contract or you own the property. You can engage with us prior to that. So if you're underwriting and looking to submit an LOI, and you've taken a look at that water and sewer expense and think it might be high, engage with SAS at that time. We can put together a really conservative pre-proposal with just some basic information with the property name, the address, and the unit mix, a utility bill if you have one. But if you send that to us, we can put together that proposal, have it back to you within 24 to 48 hours. So that you can pencil it in, see if it makes sense for your property. So that's one way.
What if you get into a best and final? And we just had lunch with somebody last week who was talking about how there's so many sponsors right now that they're putting in offers that are very, very aggressive. And there's some concern around it that there's too much emotion built into it because they just want to win it, but the numbers don't make sense. So it's like, how do you get ahead and be innovative so that the numbers do make sense? And this is a perfect opportunity that you are coming to the table with something that somebody else probably is not. And then the second piece is that now you have a negotiating factor for if you have to pencil this in at a best and final so that you can win this. So you have that. So if it makes sense and then you win the contract, then you move forward with us. And that's where we would complete what we call the full assessment. And at the full assessment, we will come on site. We will access 100% of your units. We're going to document the fixture rated flow rate of every single toilet, shower head, and faucet. And that's important because now we are providing the real data of what those flow rates are, the fixture rated flow rates. And then that creates your actual baseline savings. And then we're also documenting all of the front of the wall leaks, right? So you can go in and upgrade everything, and that's great. But if you're not addressing any of these front of the wall leaks, you could easily be leaving an additional 5 to 7% of savings right there. So these are some of those great little hidden nuggets to help improve the cash flow. And for those investors and sponsors out there that have already implemented the water efficiencies through our program, pre-shelter in place last year, most of them were able to continue distributions with their investors because they know how to turn over every single penny, right? And if you have to stop distributions for a reason, how many emails do you get? And how many phone calls do you get? I mean, it's horrible. And you want those investors to invest with you again on future properties. So this is a fantastic way to analyze it. And even if you hold a property right now and you just don't know if the property is consuming the right amount of water, well, that's why we're here. I mean, we don't charge for these discussions. This is our way of giving back in the community because there is so much information out there. And it's like, how do you break it down so that it's simple? And that's what we're trying to do, is just make it easy and have a plan in place.
Yeah, multifamily is a team sport too. It's not something that the owner or investor has to take on and really dig into. We're your teammate. Utilize us. Ask us questions about water, and we can at least get you a proposal, something to look at, and provide suggestions. Sometimes replacing the toilet, shower heads, and aerators may not be the answer. Sometimes it may be something as simple as just monitoring the consumption, which is really an inexpensive cost.
Yep, exactly. I just had a conversation similar to that with somebody this morning in Ohio. We know that they have some inefficient fixtures out there, but they elected to place sensors on their property. And that helped me and them be able to understand where they should prioritize their business plan. And looking at the analytics, it makes sense for them to prioritize their business plan in the laundry room. And so we're helping with connecting them and addressing their inefficient washers. And then the next stage is going to be clearing up those toilets for them.
I like what you mentioned earlier about the competitiveness of trying to get that next deal. I've definitely seen, being in multifamily, that there's been a massive influx of people interested in multifamily over the last 2-3 years.
Yep.
And now with all the new competition, all the new eyeballs on all these different deals, everyone's chasing that really good deal. And so it has definitely compressed cap rates and made prices more expensive than they need to be in certain areas. And so I like that, just the simple fact of partnering with you guys and figuring out what the savings could be, even if it's just a few $1,000, you'd be surprised how much that will change your overall NOI at the end of it.
Yeah.
So you guys are actually going in then and replacing these fixtures. Mm-hmm. You're replacing the complete toilet. You said the shower head and the aerator. I don't know anything about that. What is an aerator?
So on the tip of your kitchen faucet and your bathroom faucet, right, on the tip of it is an aerator, right? Typically, you can unscrew it on those older fixtures. So we replace that with an ultra high efficiency aerator. I hope you know what a shower head is, right? You got a shower head.
I'm sure that you have, or any of your listeners have experienced maybe staying at a hotel and it's a horrible shower head that's in there. And it's just barely streaming water out. And that's typically, one of those WaterSense certified shower heads. And it's just strictly reducing the actual water flow. It's restricting the water flow through the screens and through the filters of the shower head. And the idea behind that, right, is to reduce the consumption. The challenge, though, is that if the end user is not getting a good experience from that, if they're having to take a longer shower, or if they just take the shower head off entirely and replace it with one of those other water wasters again, you are defeating the absolute purpose, which is being able to reduce that consumption. So that is one of the reasons why we exclusively install the Niagara branded products, because one, they are the most efficient on the market, but they work. And they have patented technologies, most specifically like on the shower heads, that will restrict the water flow through a patented technology called Equiforce. And through that, while it's restricting it, it's still providing that water pressure. So hence the Equiforce, the force of the water coming out. So for me, the average shower head that you'll see out there in maybe, a 1970, 1980, 1990 property is probably going to be about a 2.2 or 2.5 gallon per minute shower head. And that's great water flow. Well, I am recommending to take those shower heads down to a 1.25 gallon per minute. And a lot of individuals will freak out about it. Well, I have long hair. I have a 1.25 in my house. And I have 2 teenage girls, and both of my teenage girls also have a 1.25 in their shower.
She doesn't come to work with shampoo still in her hair every day. So.
Right.
Exactly. So if the average person takes about a 10-minute shower, then from the point that you go and you turn the shower on and then you might walk away, grab a towel, that is going to run about 10 minutes. So you want to make sure that if you're on an all bills paid property, or even if you're sharing the water costs back to the residents, that you are maximizing the efficiency so you can protect those bills.
I love that. But so you mentioned that the shower head could easily be taken off if the end user is not satisfied. So that brings me to my next question. With the experience that you guys have had in this space, how often do you do all this work, install all these aerators and shower heads and toilets, and then tenants just take it apart?
Great question. I am so glad that you asked that. I would be very comfortable in saying that probably about 20 to 25% of your residents are removing the shower heads and putting in their personal shower head. That's one of the great things about the full assessment, is that when we come in pre-install, we can already see and provide that data back to you. These are the personal shower heads that we see, because we go in and we understand after seeing a couple of units what is standard on the property. And then when you see those handheld shower heads or one of those big, waterfall ones, that's a personal shower head, and we'll make note, share that with you. But here's the thing. We come across a lot of owners that they're like, hey, I need to maximize our funds. And so we're just going to go with the least expensive investment. And the least expensive investment for us is going to be installing the aerators and installing the shower heads. And that's going to help them reduce their consumption. But there's no compliance driven about that. How often are you coming back into that unit every day, every week, to make sure that resident hasn't removed the shower head? I have not met a resident yet that has removed their toilet. So if you want the insurance policy of the reduction in consumption without having to drive the compliance, make the investment in the toilets, and then run some sort of, at the make ready, or when you're doing smoke alarm checks, that you add it to that checklist to just take a peek in that shower head or take a peek at that faucet and just make sure that things are still installed. Don't need to worry about the toilet. If your residents are hauling a brand new toilet down the stairs, they're probably taking a lot of other things too.
Right. You definitely have bigger issues. And so then your technology, Anselmo, with the actual, like being able to track what the difference in the water is and then being able to go figure that out. I figure if you say you just got it without the toilet and you just had the shower head and the aerator, but then you also had the tracking ability installed in there, then you would see what it would be maybe that first month. And then the next months after that, if it was suddenly like crazy, then you're like, okay, obviously the tenants are destroying something here.
Yep. Yeah.
We're a water conservation company, right? So the last thing all we want to do is install that toilet and then say, hey, thank you for the opportunity. We'll see you later. Right. So this monitoring really helps fulfill that mission of, hey, preserving water, protecting your asset, right? Because on most of the properties we're doing this on, those, B and C class, 70s, 80s, 90s built, 60s built, it's not a matter of if it's going to leak, it's a matter of when it's going to leak. It's just got aging infrastructure. Even though we've replaced those toilets, more than likely there's going to be a leak at some point. So this is our opportunity to help protect that asset long term.
Yeah. I mean, how many water heaters have you known that have just drained out, right, in the middle of the night? And for some reason, all these things always happen in the middle of the night or on the weekends, right? None of these pipe breaks happen, at 10:30 on a Tuesday morning. It's always the extreme outside of standard hours. So getting that notification right away is key. And especially in extreme climates like Ohio, also, like I think I saw it in Omaha, it's like a -20 wind chill today. That's a problem, right? So being able to understand also ahead of time, because the sensors will also provide you access to the dashboard and tell you the temperature, that's the outdoor temperature, and you can get alerts on that. So if you're starting to hit towards that below freezing, then you can get notices out to the residents immediately, or you can put your on-site staff on alert. Hey, all right, we hit that threshold. We know now we're in the cold zone, so we need to be aware. And the sensor technology will push that alert to you in real time that we've detected an abnormal consumption.
Where are you guys primarily based out of? You're talking about Omaha.
Yeah.
DFW is home, so Dallas, Fort Worth. But we
Okay.
are a nationwide service provider. So we go across the country. Unfortunately, we haven't had that Hawaii job yet. We'd love to get there. I'm okay with Alaska right now, but definitely Hawaii. Get us to Hawaii. We are a nationwide service provider. There's transactions taking place all across the country that, water and sewer bills are really high. The uncertainty of rent increases. So how am I going to increase my NOI? Well, let's look at expenses. So that's the beauty of kind of what the pandemic did, is it forced people to look at their expense line a little bit closer. And that's where they started to engage us more and actually build us into their plan as they purchase properties.
Mm-hmm.
I love literally everything you guys are saying. I feel like it's everything I've been thinking or like talking to people about over the last year, as far as like the expense side goes, with all of the uncertainty. And it's like, well, you can always decrease expenses. And people are like, well, how do you do that? I can try. Like, what am I going to do? Fire my property manager? It's like, no, don't fire your property manager.
No.
I like to say the last 10 years have been great, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody can make money.
Yeah.
Anybody can make money because, rents were just kept increasing. So now it's like, okay, well, now I got to actually operate. Now I got to asset manage. How am I going to do that? And that's where we get involved. So.
Yeah, now I actually got to be a manager. This is where the real work comes in.
Yep, we really got to run this business.
Well, cool. It's funny you mentioned Omaha, Nebraska, too, and it being a -20 wind chill. My gosh. I was actually born in Nebraska.
Oh, really?
So
are you a Husker?
Well, I'm a Navy brat, so we just so happened to live in Omaha when I was born, and my parents told me it was like the coldest day of the year. It was like a horrible blizzard. It was -60.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't even fathom that that's a temperature that could be had.
Yeah.
And your mom walked there by herself.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Absolutely horrible. That's funny. Well, cool. All right, guys. So where are you two headed in the future? In 2021, 2, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? What's kind of the plan for the company and then for you guys?
We want to continue to spread the awareness, educate. I think that is something that we are identifying day in, day out, that there's so many individuals that still don't know about the benefits, or they need help understanding the financials, because as you shared, there's so many people that are entering this space now because there's a lot of capital. Everybody's starting to understand this, but there needs to be some coaches along the way and some team members along the way that can help give back. And that's what we're doing. So our mission is to be able to be the number one go-to for any of our multifamily and hospitality property owners, and then continue to expand, get to Hawaii, right? And also continue with the technology of the sensors, build that out a little bit more as well, and then be able to come back, like if you're going to list your property, you're going to buy it now, but you're going to hold it for 5 years, being able to partner and have us come back before you list it to make sure that it's refreshed, being able to offer some additional services along the way, I think is really important, and stay on the forefront of it.
I like the technology aspect of it. That's really what captures me is, hey, how can we not only make it more affordable, but just get that data to more people so that they can make educated decisions and ultimately protect that asset. So really, that's what I'm concentrating on and focused on. And besides getting a toilet in every apartment complex here in 2021.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. Well, cool, guys. Well, it's not over yet. Now we're going to go ahead and transition into the next segment of the show called the Podex segment. We talked a little bit about it before we started recording, but this company that makes decks of cards, they probably got like hundreds at this point, but all we're going to do, I'm just going to shuffle through these cards here, and you're going to tell me when to stop. We're going to pick 2, so one for each of you guys.
All right.
And we're just going to ask whatever the heck the question is.
Right.
So tell me when to stop.
All right, stop.
All right, Anselmo. What about you?
Stop.
All right. You guys ready for your question?
All right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Can I plead the fifth?
All right. Anselmo, we're going to go with you first.
All right.
What musical instrument will no longer be played in the future?
Oh, great question.
Oh, I already know that one.
I love musical instruments. Let's say flute.
Why? Why the flute?
Because I like all the other instruments. So I grew up playing the saxophone. So
You did.
Really?
yes. So I played the saxophone for years, and I love the wind instruments specifically. So, and guitar. I love guitar. I love drums. I love the trumpet. So if there was any, I guess, instrument that I would want to see go away, it would be the flute.
That's so cool. I'm actually a drummer myself. I've been a drummer for 14 years.
Oh, nice.
So that's cool that you.
What do you play? Like jazz music? What kind of drum?
Man, I've got an interesting, I guess, passion that I flip-flop between, because I play at my local church. I'm the primary drummer, so we play obviously a lot of worship music. Yeah. But then when it's just me on my kid at the house, I love to play like heavy metal. I love that fast pace, like super busy and complex beat that you have to really nail. Like you have to be a master at every limb of your body in order to be able to play heavy metal. And I really like the challenge of that.
Yeah.
So Monday through Saturday, you're Travis Barker. And then on Sunday, you're leading the worship team.
I love it.
Exactly. That's how it is. All right. Kelly, your question.
All right.
What would constitute a perfect day for you? Like, say, I guess let's take out the work aspect of it and just say what would constitute like hobby wise, what would just be the perfect thing?
Oh, the perfect day would just be waking up next to the ocean and enjoying some coffee in the morning out on the patio, just taking it all in, and having both of my teenage girls get up and not argue, just come and be like, Mom, you are the best mom ever. And just enjoy the day, right? And for me, I think the perfect day is just absolute positivity all day. Spend your energy on those things that are going to earn you your future, right? And not have all the negativity. So I try to stay as centered as possible, and being in the world that we are in today and raising 2 teenage girls who are extremely opinionated. I have no idea. It just makes it makes it very interesting, and mindset has definitely taken me there. So in the future, as I continue down my path of saving the world's water, that's part of why, because I want to look at the ocean. I want to be able to go fishing. And if we don't find a way to preserve it, I'm not going to be able to live my lifelong dream.
Yeah, it's the small things, isn't it? You want to wake up and your kids not argue. Yes. That's the perfect day right there.
Or say, I'm bored, or I need your credit card, or we don't have anything good to eat in the house.
Oh my gosh. My wife says that all the time. There's no food. It's like, oh, come on.
I saw that she does like making Target runs, though. I did see that on.
Yes, Target runs are a weekly occurrence. For her, they're probably like daily or every other day, because she works right by the Target at where we live. And so sometimes she'll go there on her lunch breaks.
Yes.
And she'll sit
and go through every aisle. Yes.
I'll get all these photos and stuff. She's like, this is so cool. I need this. I'm like, what the heck? What are you doing? All right. Anyhow, we are going to now transition into the last segment of the show called the Core Four, which is the same 4 questions we ask every guest. So since we've got 2 guests, we'll just flip-flop. So you'll each get 2 questions. So Anselmo, what is your favorite real estate related book?
Oh, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read that book, Robert Kiyosaki. And I'm a little older. I'm 40 now. And I was mad at myself that I did not read that book earlier. Mm-hmm. So my kids will be reading that book here probably in the next 3 years when they can comprehend it. It just reshaped the way I looked at expenses, assets, and liabilities specifically. That book is number 1 to me.
Yeah.
So how old were you when you finally read it?
A year ago.
Last year.
Last year.
It just happened.
Yeah, it literally just happened, and the light bulb went off. It's like, oh my God, what have I been doing these last 39 plus years, you know?
Exactly. That's a great message, Joe, because it's never too late. It's never too late. And now if there's a way that you can give back, it's to give back and inspire and influence others to read that, look at that, be open-minded, right?
Kelly, I have like a one-off question, so I guess I'll ask you 2 questions real quick. The first question just came to my head. I don't want to forget it. How do your teenage daughters feel about their mom being the Potty Princess? Like, are they just like super cool with that? They just go tell all their friends like
it's a 50-50. My almost 16-year-old doesn't want to talk about it.
Oh my goodness.
Is really embarrassed about it. And as a matter of fact, I had recently changed my username on Instagram to the Potty Princess. And she was so embarrassed because I had reacted to one of her photos. And so it had said the Potty Princess. I was like, you look so beautiful. You're my favorite 16-year-old daughter. And then she's like, Mom, you have to change that. You cannot engage with me on social media. So she like unfollowed me. So then on the other hand, my youngest, she's 12. She thinks it's the coolest thing ever. And where it shifted for her was when there was a podcast that was on YouTube, and she had Googled my name. And one of the very first podcasts we had been on, I think it was with Whitney Sewell, had popped up, and it was on YouTube. And she's like, Mom, did you know that you're on YouTube? And then it just kind of progressed from there. And we were talking about it this morning that she loves to look for water conservation. And she also is a young, aspiring multifamily investor. So she's studying. And I know, I love it. And so she is following somebody on TikTok who is big about water conservation as well as multifamily. And he was doing a live. And so she had messaged in TikTok and was like, hey, you need to talk to my mom. And I think that he saw that the last names were the same. He's like, oh, your mom must be the Potty Princess. Well, then all of a sudden she's like, do you know he has 12 million followers and he knows who you are? I love that because she thinks I'm a celebrity. And then on the other side, my 16-year-old is like, no.
Yeah. Right. That's awesome. Okay. Now the legitimate
The
question.
real, yeah.
Right. What do you think your unique skill is that helped you become successful?
I would say that I'm stubborn, but I'm reasonable. So I have had so many individuals through my journey that have said, you can't do it. You can't do it. And I'm more like, watch it, watch what I'm about to do. I'm going to keep going. So I think ultimately my unique skill is that faith and the belief that if you believe in it, it's going to happen. And so often individuals say there's always all these challenges and stuff, but it's those failures and it's those challenges that really mentor you along the way. So that's it.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Anselmo, tell me something that's true about real estate that almost nobody agrees with you on.
So I'll say this about my family specifically, and I'll say this that anybody can get into real estate. I was, you grow up, it's a generation thing. You work your 40 hours a week and put money into your 401k, you retire, you work for one company. So that was kind of the way I was taught and educated and grew up thinking. And then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was like, oh my God, what have I been doing for the last plus years? So as I dug into it, as we've engaged with investors, multifamily investors of all ages, with all different backgrounds, it is the realization that I can get into this. I don't need anything special. I don't need to go to school for this, to get this, to be qualified, blah, blah, blah. That there's an opportunity for anybody to get into real estate if you just dig in. So really that's the thing for me. And again, it's educating my family as well, because they're asking me, hey, what are you doing? Why? Why don't you just put your money in their 401k or the stock market? It seems
Right.
safe. So
Yeah. I love that. You hear so many success stories out there on other podcasts and in books and webinars and all this other stuff about these people that came from nothing that are now like crushing it. They're millionaires or billionaires or like Grant Cardone. I think his story is that he was like, he only had like a slice of bread a day to eat, and just him and his mom or his brothers or whatever. And he just came from nothing. And he's like, I'm not going to live this way. Now he's what? Like a billionaire or something?
Yeah.
Private jets everywhere. He buys the asset and then syndicates it. Like, who does that? So it's definitely
almost there, right? You're going to get to that level.
Man, we got a ways to go to get there, but it's all right. Maybe one day.
Keep going.
All right.
Keep going.
What one piece of advice would you give to our listeners wanting to succeed in real estate investing?
Ooh, that's a good question. The piece of advice that I would give on it, and it'll piggyback a little bit off of yours, Anselmo, is that anybody can get into this and it's never too late. But my recommendation is to do your research. So if you're going to come in and you're going to be an LP, do your research on your sponsors, on your GPs, and know the numbers, understand the business plan of it. Does it actually work? And it's easy to be able to go and learn that so that you can understand the numbers, but don't just invest because that social media post looks great, or somebody said you need to invest because you feel good about that deal. That if at the end of the day, if something went wrong, that you validated that deal also, right? That you signed off on it, because we are seeing a lot of that right now because there are so many individuals jumping in. So I ask, you need to be able to protect your own money. Check the deal out. Don't just throw it out to somebody blindly.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. If anyone wants to learn more about you guys and your business, how can people get in touch with you?
Couple of different ways. So you can reach out to us on our website, of course. So we have a real website. So it's sasconserve.com. Or you can reach out to me through social media. Just hit the hashtag #ThePottyPrincess. That'll route directly to me and to SAS. and Anselmo.
And I love LinkedIn. So that's the best way to engage with me. I love posting stuff about multifamily, specifically around water conservation. So engage with me there, LinkedIn.
Perfect. All right. Well, hey, this has been a completely different show than we've ever had before, but it's been great. I think we've had a lot of good laughs. I think there's been a lot of good knowledge and stuff thrown out there, not only for the listeners, but for me too. I feel like I'm always learning stuff. And in this, I feel like I learned a lot, like what an aerator is. Who knew? So yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out on the show with us.
Well, thank you so much for having us. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and thank you for giving us this opportunity. We really appreciate it. Hopefully it's something different and it appeals to your listeners.
Absolutely. I think everyone will get a ton out of it, and I'll probably listen to the show a handful of more times just to be able to get the most out of it and have a good laugh. You know, everyone loves a good laugh. So, all right, guys. Well, we will see you later. What a great show, guys. That was so eye-opening and so impactful to my business and to my life, knowing where I need to go and what I need to be considering now when analyzing deals. And like they said, even when you're underwriting a deal, or when you're getting ready to get something under LOI, or you're getting ready to put it under contract, you can talk to them all along the process and figure out what those savings will look like and input those into your numbers, so you'll know without a doubt kind of where you're going to be on that. So great show. They're two great people. If you guys have deals that you're needing help in, definitely reach out to them. Definitely see how they can help you increase your NOI for you and your investors. And I love that they mentioned that this last year, 2020, really allowed a lot of us to take a step back and realize, okay, maybe I can't get any rent bumps, but maybe I can look at new ways to decrease expenses. And so water conservation may not be a new way, it's been around for decades, but it might be new to you. It's new to me. It's a new thing that I will now begin implementing in a lot of my deals to just make the returns and the investment that much more attractive. And so, guys, that's all I have for you guys this week. And I'm so glad that you guys came out and listened to the show. Please subscribe, leave us a rating, leave us a review. It helps a ton. It helps other people get to hear the show and listen to the podcast and be able to get the same education and the same information that you're able to get from this. We want as many people as possible to gain that, because we really just want to educate everyone on this, getting out of the W-2 and becoming self-sufficient and financially independent. Without a doubt, it help as many people as possible achieve that. That is our goal. So that's all I got, guys, and we will see you next week.